Some voices stay with you long after they should have gone silent. This is the story of Rebecca Collins, an ICU nurse at St. Mary's Hospital in Boston. 15 years of critical care, thousands of patients, countless last words heard and honored. But nothing prepared her for the moment she heard William Thompson say, "Thank you for everything," 3 hours after his body had been taken from the empty ICU room. Let me tell you what happened on September 19th, 2023. William Thompson, Bill to everyone who knew him, had been in the ICU for 6 days. Complications from emergency surgery, sepsis, multi-organ failure, the kind of cascade where every intervention just revealed another problem underneath. Rebecca had been his primary nurse since admission. She'd started her career believing that good nursing was about technical skill, IV placements, medication timing, vital sign monitoring, and those things mattered. But 15 years in the ICU taught her something else, that the most important thing she could offer wasn't always medical. Sometimes it was just presence, attention, the willingness to see the person, not just the patient. Bill was easy to see, even sedated, even as his body failed. There was something about him, a gentleness. His family talked about his life, 43 years as an elementary school teacher, thousands of children taught, generations of families who remembered Mr. Thompson with fondness. He always said thank you, his wife Dorothy told Rebecca on the 3rd day. To everyone, the cashier at the grocery store, the mail carrier, me, every single morning for 46 years. Thank you for everything, Dorothy. Those were his first words every day. Rebecca smiled. He's a grateful man. He is, Dorothy said, then corrected herself, voice breaking. He was. By September 18th, Bill's organs were shutting down. Kidneys, liver, lungs. The ventilator was doing all the breathing. Medication was maintaining blood pressure at the edge of collapse. The body was giving up. The family made the decision that evening. Withdraw care. Let him go. They'd said their goodbyes over the past days. Now it was time to honor Bill's wishes. No prolonged suffering, no heroic measures, just peace. Rebecca was there when they withdrew support at 11:47 p.m. Dorothy held one hand. Their daughter Sarah held the other. Their son Michael stood at the foot of the bed, crying quietly. Bill's breathing slowed, stopped. The monitor flatlined at 11:53 p.m. Dr. Martinez pronounced him deceased. Time of death, 11:53 p.m., September 18th, 2023. The family stayed for another hour. Then, exhausted and grief-stricken, they went home. Rebecca stayed to prepare Bill's body for transport. It was something she always did for her patients, a final act of care. She cleaned him gently, removed the IV lines, the catheter, all the medical apparatus that had sustained and invaded his body for 6 days. She washed his face, combed his hair, covered him with a clean sheet. "Thank you, Bill," she whispered, "for being such a good patient, for your kindness. Rest well." The morgue attendants came at 2:15 a.m., took Bill's body down to the basement. Rebecca filled out the final paperwork, death certificate, nursing notes, the administrative closure of a life. Room 12 was empty by 2:45 a.m. Rebecca walked back to the ICU Nurses station. Her shift ended at 7 a.m. 4 more hours. She sat down, started catching up on charting for her other patients. At 3:22 a.m., she heard it. A voice, male, weak but clear, coming from room 12. "Thank you for everything." Rebecca's head snapped up. She looked at the room. Door open, lights off, bed empty. She stood, walked to the doorway, looked inside. Nothing. Just an empty room, stripped bed, medical equipment pushed to the walls. The space where Bill had died, now vacant. She must have imagined it. Exhaustion, grief, the mind playing tricks. She returned to her charting. At 3:38 a.m., she heard it again. Thank you for everything. Same voice, same room, same impossible clarity. This time, Rebecca wasn't alone. Marcus, another nurse, was at the station. He looked up sharply. Did you hear that? Rebecca nodded slowly. Room 12? Sounded like a patient calling out. There's no patient in room 12. They looked at each other. Both nurses with over a decade of experience. Both rational people. Both hearing the same thing. Rebecca and Marcus walked to room 12 together. Neither wanted to go alone. They stood in the doorway, looking into the empty space. The room was dark except for emergency lighting. The bed was stripped down to the mattress. No monitors, no IV poles, nothing that could make sound. Mr. Thompson died 3 hours ago, Rebecca said quietly. I know, Marcus replied. I helped you with the body prep. They stood there for a long moment, listening. The ICU at night has its own sounds. Ventilators breathing for patients, monitor alarms, the hum of equipment. But room 12 was silent. Probably just exhaustion, Marcus finally said, but he didn't sound convinced. They returned to the nurse's station. Rebecca tried to focus on her work, but she kept glancing at room 12, kept listening. At 4:05 a.m., Dr. Chen, the resident on call, came to the station. He looked unsettled. Rebecca, did you just call me from room 12? No, why? I was in the break room. I heard someone say, thank you, from this direction. I thought it was you, needing help with something. Rebecca felt cold. Dr. Chen, room 12 is empty. Mr. Thompson died at 11:53 p.m. Dr. Chen stared at her. I know Bill died. I pronounced him. But I definitely heard. He stopped, shook his head. Never mind. I'm hearing things. Too many overnight shifts. He walked away, but Rebecca saw him glance back at room 12. He'd heard it too. At 4:42 a.m., Rebecca heard it a fourth time. And this time, it was louder, clearer, unmistakable. Thank you for everything. Rebecca stood. She'd been an ICU nurse for 15 years. She'd seen patients code and come back. She'd seen unexpected recoveries and impossible deaths. She'd learned to trust her instincts, even when they defied logic. And her instincts told her this was real. Whatever real meant in this context. She walked into room 12, turned on the lights. The fluorescent bulbs flickered on, revealing the empty space in harsh clarity. Bill, she said aloud, feeling foolish. Is that you? Silence. If that's you, if you're still here somehow, I heard you. We all heard you. And you're welcome. It was an honor to care for you. More silence. Just the hum of the lights and the distant sounds of the ICU. Rebecca stood there for another minute, then turned to leave. As she reached the doorway, she heard it one more time. But this time, it was different, quieter, gentler. Not the words, but the feeling behind them. Thank you for everything. And then, nothing. A silence that felt complete, final, like a door closing softly. Rebecca stood in the hallway, tears running down her face. Not sad tears, something else. The tears you cry when you witness something that shouldn't exist, but does, when the impossible becomes briefly, beautifully real. She walked back to the nurse's station. Marcus was there. So was Dr. Chen, who'd apparently returned. They both looked at her. You heard it again, Marcus said. Not a question. Yes, and I think it was his way of saying goodbye. One last time, Dr. Chen sat down heavily. In medical school, they teach you that death is the cessation of brain function, measurable, final. But they don't teach you about this. About what? Rebecca asked. About the things we can't measure, the experiences that fall outside the scope of our instruments and our understanding. At 5:15 a.m., the cleaning crew arrived. Maria, who'd worked at St. Mary's for 20 years, went into room 12 to sanitize it for the next patient. She came out 3 minutes later, found Rebecca. Nurse Collins, did someone die in room 12 tonight? Yes, around midnight. Why? Maria hesitated. I don't know how to say this without sounding crazy, but I felt something in that room, like someone was there. And I heard. She trailed off. Thank you, Rebecca asked softly. Maria's eyes widened. You heard it too. We all did. 4 different people. 4 different times between 3 and 5 a.m. Maria made the sign of the cross. He's saying goodbye. I think so. That's beautiful and terrifying, but mostly beautiful. At 6:30 a.m., as Rebecca's shift was ending, she went back to room 12, one final time. It had been clean, fresh linens on the bed, everything ready for the next patient who would need intensive care. The room was quiet, truly quiet now. Whatever presence had lingered was gone. Rebecca stood there for a moment, remembering Bill, his kindness, his family's grief, and his final message, echoed 4 times through an empty room in the early morning hours. You're welcome, she whispered to the empty air, for everything. Rebecca went home that morning and slept for 4 hours. When she woke up, she couldn't stop thinking about what had happened. She'd worked in ICUS long enough to know that death sometimes came with strange phenomena. Deathbed visions, shared death experiences, the moment when multiple family members report feeling something at the exact time of death, even from miles away. But this was different. Bill had been dead for hours. His body was in the morgue. And yet his voice, or something carrying his message, had echoed through that empty room 4 times, heard by 4 different people. She thought about calling Dorothy, Bill's widow. But what would she say? Your husband's ghost thanked us from beyond the grave? That seemed cruel, potentially traumatizing. But then she remembered something Dorothy had said during one of their conversations. Bill doesn't believe in leaving things unsaid. He always makes sure people know they're appreciated. Maybe this was just Bill being Bill, even in death, unable to leave without ensuring everyone knew how grateful he was. Rebecca decided to wait, see if Dorothy reached out. Sometimes families needed closure. Sometimes they needed to know that their loved one had found peace. 3 days later, Dorothy called the ICU, asked to speak to Rebecca specifically. I had the strangest dream last night, Dorothy said. Bill was standing in a bright room, looked healthy, happy, and he said, I told them thank you, made sure they knew. Does that mean anything to you? Rebecca's throat tightened. Dorothy, can I tell you something that happened the night Bill died? Something I haven't shared with anyone outside the hospital staff who experienced it. Please. Rebecca told her. All of it. The 4 times the voice was heard, the multiple witnesses, the feeling of presence, and then absence. When she finished, there was silence on the phone for a long moment. Then Dorothy laughed. Not hysterical laughter, the warm, knowing laughter of someone who'd lived with a man for 46 years and understood him completely. That is so Bill, she said. So completely, perfectly Bill. He probably realized he'd died without properly thanking his care team and needed to fix that, even from the other side. You're not upset? Scared? Upset? Rebecca, You just gave me the most beautiful gift. You told me that my husband's essential nature, his gratitude, his kindness, survived death, that he's still himself, wherever he is. How could I be upset about that? I was worried it would frighten you. Death frightens me. Losing Bill frightens me. But knowing that consciousness continues, that love and personality persist, that's not frightening. That's hope. They talked for another 20 minutes. Dorothy shared stories about Bill's lifetime of gratitude, how he'd write thank you notes to everyone, how he'd taught his students that appreciation was a form of seeing people, acknowledging their humanity. He'd want you to share this story, Dorothy said, not for attention, but because it might help someone else, someone who's afraid that death is just nothing. Bill believed there was something more, and apparently he was right. After they hung up, Rebecca sat with that thought. Should she share what happened? Would anyone believe her? She started paying attention to the conversations happening quietly in the hospital. The stories nurses and doctors told each other in hushed voices, stories they'd never put in official reports. There were dozens, hundreds, maybe. The patient who described leaving his body during surgery and watching the procedure from the ceiling later confirmed details he couldn't have known. The woman who died and was resuscitated, who described meeting her deceased mother and being told, "It's not time yet." The ICU patient who told the night nurse that his sister had just died, and they found out hours later it was true, even though no one had called. These stories existed in the margins, shared carefully, never documented officially. Because how do you chart patient-reported communication with deceased family member without sounding insane? But the stories persisted because the experiences persisted. Hospitals are threshold spaces, places where people cross from life to death constantly. And sometimes, apparently, the crossing goes both ways, briefly, long enough for a message, a farewell, a final. Thank you for everything. 6 months after Bill's death, Rebecca was invited to speak at a palliative care conference. The topic was end-of-life communication and after-death experiences. She almost declined, but then she remembered Dorothy's words. He'd want you to share this story. At the conference, she met other healthcare workers with similar experiences. A hospice nurse whose patient appeared to her in a dream the night he died, thanking her. A physician who heard his deceased patient's laughter in an empty hospital room. An entire emergency department that reported feeling a presence during a difficult trauma case. These weren't rare, isolated incidents. They were common, part of the landscape of death and dying that medicine acknowledged privately, but never officially. Dr. Sarah Kerr, a palliative care specialist from Oregon, gave a presentation on after-death communications. She'd been documenting them for 12 years. We have over 3,000 reported cases, she explained. Healthcare workers experiencing contact from deceased patients within 72 hours of death. Voices, visions, dreams, feelings of presence, often with multiple witnesses. She pulled up a slide. Common elements, expressions of gratitude, reassurance that they're okay. Messages for family, validation of care provided. Rebecca felt chills. Bill's message fit perfectly. Pure gratitude. What's actually happening? Someone asked. Dr. Kerr smiled. I don't know. Maybe consciousness persists after death. Maybe it's our brains creating what we need for closure. But here's what matters. The effect is the same. Healthcare workers who experience these phenomena report reduced burnout, increased purpose. Families report better bereavement outcomes. Whether objectively real or psychologically generated, They provide comfort and connection. After the presentation, Rebecca approached Dr. Kerr and shared Bill's story. Dr. Kerr listened carefully, taking notes. "Can I include this in my research?" she asked. "Yes, because after it happened, I changed how I practice nursing. I pay more attention to the end. Not just the medical end, but the existential end. The moment when someone's presence shifts from physical to memory. How I talk to them, even after they die. While preparing the body, I say thank you back. I acknowledge what they gave. If Bill could say thank you after death, I can say it while the body's still in the room. Just in case they're listening." Dr. Kerr smiled. "That's beautiful. And I think they are listening. Maybe not how we understand listening, but consciousness, whatever it is, can still perceive." Rebecca returned to Boston with renewed purpose. She wasn't just a nurse anymore. She was a witness, someone who'd been given evidence that the boundary between life and death was more permeable than she'd been taught. She started teaching new ICU nurses differently. Yes, teach the technical skills, the protocols, the life-saving interventions, but also teach the mystery, the respect for experiences that don't fit in textbooks. "Some of you will see things you can't explain," she told orientees. "Hear things, feel things. Don't dismiss them. Don't let anyone make you feel crazy. Document what you can, honor what you can't. And remember that caring for the dying means honoring the full complexity of death, including the parts we don't understand." One nurse raised her hand. "Has it happened to you more than once?" Rebecca nodded. "Twice more since Bill. Different patients, different messages, but the same sense of presence reaching back across the boundary to say goodbye." "Does it ever stop feeling strange?" "No," Rebecca said honestly. "It always feels impossible, and that's okay. Some of the most important things we experience are impossible. That doesn't make them less real." Rebecca still works in the ICU at St. Mary's Hospital, still cares for critically ill patients, still walks that difficult path between hope and preparation, fighting and letting go. Room 12 has housed dozens of patients since Bill Thompson died there. Some recovered, some didn't. Each one received Rebecca's full attention, her technical expertise, and her human presence. And when patients die now, Rebecca always says, "Thank you," out loud, to their bodies, their spirits, whatever remains in those final moments. "Thank you for trusting us. Thank you for fighting. Thank you for letting us care for you." She doesn't know if they hear, but she says it anyway, because Bill taught her that gratitude doesn't end at death, it transcends it. Dorothy Thompson visits sometimes, brings cookies for the ICU staff, shares updates about her children and grandchildren. She's doing okay. The grief hasn't disappeared, but it's softened, transformed into something she can carry. "I still hear him sometimes," Dorothy told Rebecca last year. "In the morning, when I first wake up, thank you for everything, Dorothy." Same words, same voice. Every time it happens, I smile instead of cry. "Do you think it's really him?" Rebecca asked. "Or memory?" Dorothy considered. "Does it matter? It brings me comfort. It reminds me that 46 years of love doesn't just evaporate when someone dies. It persists, maybe as consciousness, maybe as memory, maybe as something we don't have words for. But it persists." Rebecca thinks about that often, about the persistence of love and personality beyond physical death, about Bill, who couldn't leave without expressing gratitude, about the voice that echoed through an empty room at 3 a.m. She's heard it 2 more times since that first night. Not Bill, other patients, other voices saying goodbye in ways that defied explanation. She doesn't talk about it much, only with colleagues she trusts, only with families who seem ready to hear. But each time it happens, she feels grateful to work in a profession where she witnesses the threshold, grateful to care for people in their most vulnerable moments, grateful for the mystery. Last week, she was caring for an elderly woman named Grace, end-stage heart failure, surrounded by family, at peace with dying. Grace died quietly at 4 p.m. Rebecca prepared her body gently, same as always, said her thank you, sent Grace down to the morgue. That night, working late shift, Rebecca walked past Grace's empty room and heard, faint but clear, "You're welcome, dear. You're so very welcome." Rebecca smiled, didn't question it, didn't doubt it, just accepted it as another small gift, another reminder that the work she does matters. That care persists. That gratitude transcends. If you've ever worked in healthcare and heard something you couldn't explain, if you've ever felt the presence of someone who just died, if you've ever known with absolute certainty that death is not the end of consciousness or connection or love, you're not alone. The boundary between life and death is thinner than we've been taught. And sometimes, for just a moment, a voice crosses back to say goodbye, to say thank you, to remind us that we are seen and appreciated, even or especially from the other side. Thank you for listening to Bill's story and Rebecca's story. If this touched you, there are more stories like this. Subscribe to hear them.